So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Detrás de cada gran hombre hay una gran mujer. And in English, this means behind every great man, there's a great woman. Now, personally, in my life, and what I've learned at Jesuit High School, I want to be one of the greatest men. We've also learned that we don't want to be the greatest for ourselves, but for the world. And so when I become the great man that God has called me to be, I have to realize that there's one person who is also largely responsible for me getting there, and that's my mother. So you see, the poet Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Men are what their mothers made them." And while I have my own dreams, I have my own aspirations, I have my own goals, everything that I am has been inspired by my own mother, by her love, because she wants me to get to that point of being the man that God created me to be. So there have been 4 major experiences that have shaped my understanding of the important role that my mother plays in my life. So the first experience, I'll say I was 4 years old, and you have to understand that when I was very young, I was highly sensitive. You know, someone would just have to say, "Richard, your shoes untied," and I would burst into tears. Like, it was basic things like that. So, but the beautiful thing about mothers is that they know how to handle each of their children based on their own needs. So because she knew I was sensitive, she was able, whenever I had issues, she knew how to handle me, not with, necessarily stern words, but loving words. So for example, when I was 4 years old, one night, for some reason, we had a disagreement. I was angry, and the routine was usually that she would give me a kiss goodnight, and she'll tell me that she loved me. But tonight I was just so angry, I didn't let her touch me, I didn't let her kiss me, and I just rolled over. So because she knew, she took into mind that I was sensitive. So she sat on the edge of the bed, and she said, "Richard," she said, what if something happens to me tonight and that you don't see me tomorrow?" So even at that young age, that just struck me, because I could never imagine anything happening to my mother, the most beautiful woman in my life. And so I hurried up, I jumped up, I gave her a kiss, I told her goodnight. And every night since then, I never went a night without letting her tell me goodnight. Even to the point where in later years, I took the initiative. I would go to their rooms. I'll tuck my own parents in. I'll tell both of them goodnight. I'll give them a kiss and say, "I love you." So in this instance, this taught me the importance of my mother in my life and how devastated I would be if I ever lost her. The second experience was about 4 years later. I was about 8 years old. And I have 2 sisters, and one's older. So one of the privileges of having an older sister is that you get to watch them go through boy trouble. And so one instance in particular, Ashley, her name's Ashley, she came into the room, and there were just tears streaming down her face, and she was just devastated. And Mom said, "Ashley, what's wrong?" And apparently, the young man she was on the phone with, he was saying that he wanted to have a deep relationship with her, like a really, really deep relationship that she wasn't ready for. So because of that, because she wasn't ready for that, he was just completely disrespectful towards my sister. He was cursing out and things like that. So my mom, she gently took the phone, and she posed one question. She said, "Is that the way you speak to your mother?" And so apparently the boy, he didn't say anything, and then he hung up. And that was the last that they heard from him. And I would say that's probably for his own good, because my father's a police officer, but my mom, but the thing is, my mom gives him for a run for his money. Like, I'm more afraid of my mother than my father, but but that just taught me 2 things. One, that whenever we had issues, whenever we had problems that we thought we couldn't solve, we could always bring them to Mom, and she knew exactly what to do to handle that situation. She knew how to solve it. So that taught me a great trust in my mother. The second thing is that it taught me that there's a strong correlation between the love that a son has for his mother and the love that he'll have for his wife and other women in his life. For example, I remember one time we were walking out of Barnes & Noble, and up to that point, I hadn't really been opening doors for my mother and such, but he actually he held 2 doors open at once and was doing this big acrobatic thing to hold the doors open for my mother. And then he pulled me to the side. He said, "Now you have to understand something. When there are women coming through the door, especially your mother and your sister, always hold the door open." And since then, I've never failed to hold my door open for my mother. And this has actually transferred over to my relationships with other girls. I always hold doors open for any woman that I meet. And it's true that the way I treat my mother will transfer to the way I treat other girls in my life. So that was the second experience. My third experience has been my admiration and respect for the relationship between the Blessed Mother and Jesus. One of the greatest aspects of the Catholic faith is Marian intercession. We can go to Mary with confidence. We can fly to Mary with confidence, as seen in the Memorare. And we can know that if she brings his intentions before Jesus, that he loves his mother, and that he's likely to obey that. And then in that way, we should reflect that. That if anyone would come to my mother and my mom said, Richard, someone needs something, I'm sure I would do it for that person because I love her. So just looking at the relationship between Mary and Jesus has greatly inspired me. For example, the joyful mystery of the finding in the temple. Joseph and Mary, they're very upset that they couldn't find Jesus after Passover. And when they found him, they scolded him. They said, "Where have you been? Why did you do this to us?" And he said, "Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" And so even though he understood at a young age that he was the Son of God, that he had a higher role, a higher purpose, that he had to obey the Father, he also understood the obligation that he had to his mother. And it says that he went home with him and obeyed them. And that's what I strive to imitate. I try to obey my mother. Even though I might think I have other obligations, I always take the time to obey my mother. So that's the third experience. And finally, the fourth experience has been even her discipline. Fortunately, like I said, I have two sisters. I'm the middle child, so fortunately, she spent more attention like yelling at the other two. So even to the point where if I see her yelling at one of them, I'm like, oh, well, my inheritance just went up by 30%, so you know. But there even have been times where she's had to discipline me. You know, I'm sure we understand that sometimes we have shortcomings academically. We don't always do our work, you know, we start falling behind. And sometimes my mother's scolding, I guess, can be somewhat biting. But basically, I found that she's not out to get me. It's that she loves me. She says, "Richard, you're better than this. I just want you to be the fullest that you can be. I want you to be the man God created you to be. If you want to be a musician, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a police officer, I want you to get there. I love you, and that's why I'm here. I'm scolding you, but I want you to get where you want to be." So even in the times of discipline, I've been able to find how much my mother loves me and cares for me. So finally, gentlemen, I think that Washington Irving had it best. He described the roles that mother play in our life best when he said that a mother is the truest friend we have. When trials heavy and sudden fall upon us, when adversity takes the place of prosperity, when friends desert us, when trouble thickens around us, still will she cling to us and endeavor by her kind precepts and counsels to dissipate the clouds of darkness and cause peace to return to our hearts. And for me, I've seen this in my life. Those times when I thought I had it together, when I thought that I could take on the world by myself, and I knew I had all these issues, I didn't have to say a thing. Mom knew exactly what was going on. And there were those times where she would just take me in her arms and say, "It's okay." And I knew that Mom was there. When there seemed to be no light at the tunnel, she had the flashlight. And it seems like life was beating me to the ground. She was there to pick me up. She would bandage me and get me ready for round 2. So I just want to tell Mom, thank you for being my strength and my fortress. And thank you for being my mother. So thank you.